Welcome to our rational number conversion notes. Go ahead and make sure you secured your guided note sheet and let's get started. When it comes to converting fractions to decimals, remember to divide the numerator by the denominator. And for those who can't remember, A would be our numerator and B would be our denominator. So we would divide this by saying A divided by B. Okay? And also, another thing you don't want to forget is if you're dealing with a situation where B and A will require you to add a decimal and continue adding on zeros, don't forget your decimal point. Okay, let's look at some examples now. For this first fraction, I have 1 over 4, 1/4, okay? I would set this up 1 divided by 4. And then I would go ahead and divide out. I know that 4 can't go into 1, but 4 can go into 10 2 times, which is going to give me 8. 4 goes into 25 times, and that leaves me with no remainder. So that means that my decimal is going to be 0.25. Okay? I want you to pause the video here. Matter of fact, let me start you off on this problem. Okay? Here we have 2 and 5/8. Now here's something you need to remember. This 2 is a whole number. So that means that this 2 is going to be in front of the decimal. So if we can go ahead and already start the decimal off, it's going to be 2 point something, whatever this 5 over 8 is. So I'm going to set this up 5 divided by 8, and I'm going to solve it out. Now I'm going to leave this for you to solve. Go ahead and finish this out. Tell me what my decimal is going to be, and then convert 3 over 5 into a decimal. And when you finish that, come to me to check you off and then continue with the rest of the video. Since you have played the video, I've assumed that you've already gotten checked off by me. If you have not gotten checked off by me, please pause here and get me to check the previous 2 problems. Now let's move on to this problem. This problem is going to require us to use our buck strategy. Okay? So I want you to be sure to use your buck strategy here. Okay? You can pause the video here, solve the problem, and then press play to see the answer. Ms. Firstner is baking a cake for a competition that must be 2.5 inches by 3/4 inches. What is the area of the cake in decimal form? Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do in my buck strategy is box the question. What is the area of the cake is my question. Next, I'm going to underline any important information. The first thing that's important is that we're talking about baking a cake, and these are the dimensions of the cake. The next thing that I'm going to do is circle any important information. I need to know that my answer has to be in decimal form, and that I'm going to have to find the area. That's important. Next, I can go ahead and solve the problem. The first thing that I know is that I'm asked the area. So I have to know my area formula, which area equals length times width. If I'm already given 2 dimensions, then I can go ahead and plug those in. 2.5 inches times 3/4 inches. And then I'm going to treat this like a multiplying fractions problem. I'm going to convert this into an improper fraction. Keep this the same. And then I'm going to multiply straight across. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 4 is 8. And when I divide out, my answer is going to be 1.8 0.75 inches squared. Remember, it's inches squared because we multiply the inch times the inch. Okay, let's keep moving. When it comes to converting decimals to fractions, remember your place value and remember to simplify using your divisibility rules. Okay? If I want to turn 0.12 into a fraction, the first thing that I must remember is that this 12 falls in the hundredths place. That means that this is the same as 12 over 100. Now this is not my final answer. I need to go ahead and simplify, and both of these numbers are divisible by 4. So when I simplify, my final answer is 3 over 25. Okay? In this next problem, this 2 in the ones place represents a whole number. Okay? So this is going to be our whole number. And then this 6 is in the, if you said tenths place, then you're correct. So that means this is the same thing as 6 over 10. Now, of course, we can simplify this 6 over 10 by dividing the top and the bottom by 2. This whole number we're going to leave alone because it is the same. The only thing we're doing is simplifying the fraction. So this is going to simplify to 2 and 3/5. Now, I want you to solve this last one, convert this decimal into a fraction, and then get it checked by me. Then you can move on to this next problem, and I want you to use your buck strategy to solve this. Once you have finished, you may also get this checked by me, and then we'll flip to the back of the notes to finish up. Finally, let's talk about converting percents to fractions and decimals. The first thing that we need to know is that a percent means parts per 100. So if we're talking about 100%, that's going to be a complete whole. Any part of that 100 is going to be a percent. When we're talking about converting a percent to a decimal, we want to move the decimal point twice to the left. If you don't see a decimal, for example in these problems, then it's assumed that our decimal is actually going to start right after the number. Okay? So if we move this point 2 times to the left, I'm going to draw this a little bit bigger so you all can see. This is going to look like this. 1, 2. And therefore our decimal will be 0.15. Now, let's look at this one. With 3%, if I move the decimal over twice, that's going to be 1, 2. With this open area that we're going to fill in with a 0. So 3% is the same thing as 0.03. Now you do the last one, and then let's continue on. Before we move on to our next note, if you said that 92% was the same thing as 0.92, then you are correct. Now, when we're converting percents to fractions, you want to put the percent number over 100 and simplify as best you can. Because remember, that percent symbol means parts per 100. So if we look at 15%, this is the same thing as saying 15 parts per 100. And then from there we can simplify. I know that the top and the bottom numbers are both divisible by 5, so that's going to leave me with 3 over 25 as my fraction. Now I want you to finish these second 2 problems, and then we'll move on. Get them checked by me, and then we'll continue on. Alright, for these next 2 problems, it's going to require you to convert percents to fractions and decimals. Okay? And you're going to use what you find in the top problem to help you on the challenge problem. I want you to make sure that you use your buck strategy, that you are circling and underlining and utilizing your information. And also, I've given you a little hint to see if you can solve this problem. Once you have finished the rest of your problems, make sure to raise your hand and get checked off by me, and then you can move on to your final activities. See ya!